Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Matthew. Thank you so much for joining me for this rendition of the Hasbro review video. So, a couple months ago, I did complete the series 1 through 11 of the Hasbro review, but I did want to come back and redo or make one more video. And that was going to include pretty much not all of them per se, but it was supposed to include both the Hasbro Mailaways as well as some of the Hasbro prototype figures that were presented to buyers but just not officially released. So, not really a lot of back history with any of these figures, but some of them are pretty much well known information. So I'm not really going to be giving a whole lot more detail than what you may not have already known. But I think I want to start with the Mailways, and I want to start with a couple of figures, original figures that I had as a kid, and we'll move into both their Mailway figures as well as their later on releases. So, let's start with the Bret Hart figure and Bret Hart Mailaway figure. So, the original Bret Hart Mailaway, and when you think about Mailaway figures, these were put in the WWF magazine in, the early 90s, and they were sent off to China for packaging, for, processing those figures. And they had a design for the Bret Hart Mailaway figure. And of course, with any of the Mailways, they didn't come in your regular, blue card backs or anything like that with a little bubble. They just came in regular, plastic baggies that were factory sealed. And they had a beautiful Mailaway Bret Hart design ready for processing. Now, whether they just lacked the funds or maybe they just had an overabundance of Bret Hart Series 4 figures, the Bret Hart with black elbow pads and white wristbands, or I might have that backwards, but either way, we'll say black elbow pads and white wristbands was the original design with the Bret Hart figure. And also to include on the back, you also had a bunch of hearts on the back of his pants, or not hearts, excuse me, stars. There were stars on the back of his pants, and there were additional stars on the bottom of his boots as well. Again, why they scrapped that choice, I don't know. Me personally, my belief is they just had over-manufactured too many Series 4 figures. So what happened? You had the original Series 4 Bret Hart. The opposite of what that Mailway was, obviously. A very plain and simple figure. Now, they did release, and here's a kind of a tricky thing when dealing with these type of figures. In Series 4 on blue card, back in 1992, they released both a pink heart variant, and they also released a purple heart variant. Now, why is that purple heart variant important? Well, simply put, when you got the Series 4 Bret Hart with purple, is it really a Series 4 or is it a Mailaway? So, the manufacturers in China, they took the Series 4 Bret Hart. All they did was simply remove the pink heart and gave you a purple heart. And suddenly, throw them in a little plastic baggie, factory seal it, bam. You have your Bret Hart Mailaway figure found in the WWF magazines. Here is and they didn't really change anything else on the actual figure. All they had was, the purple heart. And like I said, you could find variants of the Bret Hart figure on a blue card. So, if you ever come across a purple Bret Hart, or purple heart on Bret Hart shirt, question is it a Series 4 or is it a legitimate Mailaway figure? If I come to you and I tell you, hey, I've got a Mailaway Bret Hart loose, and someone says, no, that's Series 4, how can they fight me on that? You really just don't know. So if you are a collector, it's either buy the Mailaway Bret Hart in package or don't get him at all. Because very few people are going to be the original owners of their childhood collectibles. It's a sad reality. Probably better than 90% of collectors out there, start collecting these or recollecting as adults. So if they had anything to their from their original collection, it's so rare. And of course, in 1994, with the first release of Hasbro figures, came Series 8, which was your Silver Shades Bret Hart figure, moving away from the pink. As you will see, contrary to what the original design was with the black and white wristbands and elbow pads, they just gave you a straight up pink design in Series 8, and they did away with the stars on the back. Now, whether you like the pink heart, this is the figure from childhood. Obviously not my original from childhood, but this is probably the most played with action figure I ever had as a kid. Then you throw in the Mailaway with the purple heart, and then you follow up with your Series 8 action figure. Sometimes when they do these repaints, I'm not a huge fan. I want to see a different design. Kind of like going from like Crush in Series 2 to the Crush in Series 7. But then they do the same Crush 7 to 11 with a better repaint, with a better paint job though. So that is the Bret Hart figure, or the Bret Hart Mailaway. Next up, also from childhood, get rid of this championship belt. If Bret Hart was not the most played with figure of my childhood, The Undertaker was. But I think I've kind of used them both repetitiously, so it's really hard to say which one got more play as a kid. As a child, as I said before, I didn't really always have the Hasbros or Galoobs for play, so like sometimes I would include like I don't know, The Undertaker would square off against Bigfoot or Cathro from Thundercats, or something like that. I can't remember his name. Is it Panthro or Cathro? It might be Panthro. So Undertaker. So Series 4 release based on his first appearance in 1990 with much more reddish hair, and to include eyeshadow, eye paint underneath his hat. During that same span that they were making the Bret Hart Mailaway, they also came out with Undertaker Mailaway. Kind of makes sense because both Bret Hart and Undertaker were released in Series 4, so kind of using the exact same figures as part of your Mailaway, two of your biggest superstars. And such a subtle change, looking at it by the naked eye, you would hardly even notice. Not unless you were literally staring right at it. I mean, I'm staring at it and can hardly notice. So, the original 1992 Series 4 release of The Undertaker featured the reddish hair, whereas his Mailaway figure, let's see if we try to get these as close as possible, was kind of like a darker red / light brown color. So that is the Undertaker Mailaway. Everything identical to the original. Red hair to the brown hair. And you finish him off with your Series 8 black hair. Try and turn all these guys around. And, again, it's interesting that you have a Series 4 release of Bret Hart. You have a Series 4 release of Undertaker. You have both those same figures released as Mailways. And then you see those exact same figures, same exact body type and everything, re-released again in Series 8 in 1994. The first of the 4 final releases, 8 through 11, in 1994. I mean, obviously, with the exception of the Mailaway, based on value, price value, the Series 8 Undertaker is going to be the most important. If I'm choosing my favorite figures, I chose Series 8 over the 4. Now, the 4 I had as a kid, didn't know anything about these later figures as a child, but I just like the darker hair a little bit better. So, Undertaker Mailaway figures. Now, one of your largest superstars, and not a Series 4 release, but a Series 3 release, featured the greatest iteration of the Hasbro Hulk Hogan. 1992 Series 3. To me, the Series 3 and the Series 2 Bear Hug are basically the exact same figure, because when you look at the arm positioning, I mean, just imagine if this arm was closed, right? And you just popped it open. That's what the Series 2 looks like. So, but the Series 3, easy. Number one best Hulk Hogan figure of the Hasbro line. With asterisk. Why? Because Hasbro also took that same figure and added a third mail-away character. And if you're able to find a Hulk Hogan mail-away in that pathetic excuse of a plastic Ziploc bag, not really a Ziploc, but you know what I mean. Just the fact that it's in a baggie like that, you take a figure that could sell for a couple $100 and you basically put another zero on it, and it's a $2,000 figure. And this is the... Why can't I ever remember it? I can't remember if it was SummerSlam or WrestleMania or whatever it was. But when Lex Luger and Bret Hart fell to Yokozuna, and then Yokozuna challenged Hogan in the ring and he beat him in like a second. That is the infamous look from... Every time I see this figure, that's all I could think of is that one event. Just an absolutely good-looking figure. Nice little Hulkamania stencil across the shirt with the star and the bandana. The Hulk Hogan Mailaway, probably the most impressive figure of Hasbro. Again, if you're choosing a top favorite figure of the Hogans, you could go either way. Because it's different and it's got a little bit more color detail to it, yes, I would choose the Mailaway above the Series 3, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they're both the same figure, essentially. They're both great pieces. And it makes sense. I mean, like I said, Hulk, having Undertaker and Bret Hart as Mailaways, a couple of your biggest stars. How about WWF's biggest legend ever? Yes, Hogan's going to get a Mailaway. Hogan gets everything. Come on. Only makes sense. Such an incredible piece. Again, wanted to give you guys one last look around. Alright, so those are three of the Mailaways. Right now, we're going to dive into a few of the prototypes. Now, here's the thing. Hasbro, not as big as LJN in terms of variants, but yes, other figures do come with variants. They may be so subtle that nobody really knows about them, or if they do, they're not really paying attention. Like, I don't know, what's a good example? Let's say your Series 1 Macho Man. Maybe somebody gets one that's more pinkish than orange. I haven't seen one myself, but again, I'm sure variations like that exist. So this may not be the complete list, but it's a respective amount, I think. Alright, so 1990s formed an awesome tag team with a couple musicians, or a couple guys portraying musicians, and the whole Elvis Presley look. And that was, of course, the Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine to form Rhythm and Blues. So Hasbro actually was going to release a Rhythm and Blues version of Greg Valentine, but they ended up breaking up, and that figure never existed. Now think about this. Just like any toy company, you're going to have to give buyers, a whole slew of different presentations of figures that you want to, sell in their stores or whatnot, to different suppliers, distributors. And, they're going to choose the figures they want. That's how we got 8-inch LJN figures. Even though the original design were like the 4-inch bendies, you got the 8-inch because that's what the distributors wanted. This was presented to suppliers, and it could have been made, But unfortunately, Rhythm Blues broke up before the figure was ever released. So all you have nowadays is a prototype that's circling. I think Matt Cardona or someone like that. One of these pro wrestlers has the original figure, and I heard they paid like 40 grand for it or some crazy number. I'm like, dude, I commend you for spending that, but I could wake up tomorrow, someone can hand me a check for $50 million. $40,000 for a toy, man. That would kill me. So that is the Greg Valentine, and look at this version. And kind of compare it to the Mattel Retro. The Mattel Retro is okay. It's not a perfect figure. It's okay. It's serviceable. Nowhere near as solid as this version right here. Awesome figure right there. Now, another interesting character, and I don't remember, again, I don't have the best memory, so I don't know if this was like pre-surgery or whatnot, but you know how Bruce Beefcake got hit in the face and he had to start wearing a mask. Well, that ended up creating the Hulk Hogan and Bruce Beefcake tag team, and you formed the Mega Maniacs. Well, in Series 3, back in 1992, the first of two series released that year, Series 3 and Series 4, they released the Series 3 Zebra Pants Brutus Beefcake figure. They still use the same head mold from the Series 1 Brutus Beefcake, but absolutely improved the body 100%. One of the best fighting poses, one of the best graphically looking figures. Absolutely fantastic all around. Oddly enough, the Brutus Beefcake isn't even on my top 10 list of favorite Hasbros, which is so odd because this figure is so incredible. And what even makes it even more interesting is the Mega Maniac prototype that was looked upon and just never released. And it's just a Series 3 Brutus Beefcake with a different paint scheme to include his Mega Maniac look alongside Hulk Hogan. And when you actually look at these guys side by side, that is such a killer look. I mean, these are like $500 figures. I don't know if I'd pay that much, but they're awesome pieces nonetheless. So you do take your Zebra Pants, give them the Mega Maniac look. Could you imagine if this figure actually was released today? I don't know if you would actually find too many people still having this figure on card. I kind of feel like it would be like a Series 8 Bret Hart on card. Yeah, you can find the figure from time to time, but you gotta pay $500 for it. $350 on a short end, and I just wouldn't want to do that. But because I'm only like, I don't know, right now I think I'm like 3 figures away from completing my collection. My carded Hasbro collection, that is. So currently the Series 8 Bret Hart and Series 3 Macho Man. Nope, I just bought Macho Man from a UK seller. Shoot. Series 2 Dusty Rhodes and Series 8 Bret Hart. I think that's it. I think I have everything else now. Either on hand or due in. That's awesome. But your Mega Maniac, Brutus Beefcake. And I do have the Mega Maniac shears as well to go with the figure, but I just didn't bring it out. The last figure we're going to look at. Now, I really thought that this figure was much more, was released a whole lot more than what it was. I've read that it was only a prototype, but I could have sworn that they released the original version first, and that's why there just aren't too many figures on card or available on the open market. So we'll backtrack to 1987. Why do I want to go back to 1987? Well, because I want to look at your Series 4 LJN, which featured very well possibly the single greatest wrestling action figure ever. I say that about a number of figures. Yes, But this is an absolute perfect figure. Now, you'll notice that not only did they get the paint scheme perfect, but the stars and the centered moon belly, perfect. So, in 1993, the last of the series releases, they had Series 5, 6, and 7 released in 93, featured the Series 7 Kamala. Now, the biggest thing that you're going to notice about the Kamala figure is not only the fact that they off-centered his symbol, but they didn't even give him the right symbol. They took the moon belly away and they gave him this off-centered star. Now, some of the talks is, when you're creating these action figures, you got to get approval of all these different people. Kamala could have been one of those guys that needed to give approval before they released, his figure. And I guess they never got that approval. So what happened is they went ahead and they just put a different design on it. And they were able to release that figure. Now, again, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive they did release the actual Moonbelly Kamala on card in stores. I think they released, a very small amount of the Moonbelly until it was officially replaced with the star. But if I'm wrong, at the very least, either distributors or someone out there, had the original carded Moonbelly Kamala. And there's, right now, I think I've seen one seller on eBay for like 25 grand or something. I don't even know if he even has that figure up anymore, but it's kind of funny because when I started getting into collecting, one of the big things that I kept hearing was always keep $5,000 in a savings account, because if you ever come across a Moonbelly carded Kamala, you're going to need that $5,000 to buy him up immediately. And so I've been hearing like $5,000 is the going rate for a Moonbelly Kamala. Again, I've seen prices on eBay for a carded figure go in the 20, 25, even $30,000 range. So is the value $5,000 or is the value $25,000? Not anything. I would never spend 30 grand or close to it on a action figure, carded action figure, but to get this was sufficient. I'm more than pleased with this version of Kamala. Again, Kamala, Star versus Moonbelly. And even the Moonbelly itself is kind of off-center, not 100% smack down the middle. As you can see with the LJN, it really is like right smack even with his belly button here. It's like even to the belly button. I don't know if that's intentional or the design was wrong. I don't know. It's a great figure nonetheless. And I've said before, so the last video I finally did my AWR Remco tournament, completed my last AWR Remco tournament matchup. Kamala Remco was one of the last three standing. And I always say that, when I do my tournaments, it always feels like Kamala's right at the end. So he's always at the end for my LJNs. I love the Hasbro Kamala. Fantastic figure. The only downside is the fused legs. That's it. Like, what's that all about, right? So it's nice that I waited to do Kamala again in this video. Best for last type of deal. When it comes to the customs or your mail-away figures or your prototypes, etc., I like the Hogan the best, obviously. But so if you guys know about any other variants, and it doesn't have to be anything special. I mean, it could be like what I talked about earlier, as far as the Macho Man figure, as an example. If you know of certain variants of the line, please tell me about them, because you know what? I learn just as much from you guys as anyone who watches my videos learns from me. So, and I always appreciate all the feedback and whatnot. It helps me for my personal knowledge, and of course, it helps me to create better videos in the future. All right, so the next video after this one is going to be a walkthrough video, and I'm planning on releasing that on Wednesday. And that's what is Wednesday, the 11th. I think it's Wednesday the 11th. So, all right. After that, I think the Cello Toys review is I'm probably gonna do them by series, which means that'll take I think 3 series over there. So every 2 days, 6 days to get all 3 series released. Once I complete the Cello Toys review, I don't know. I might take a break from YouTube for a few days, a week, I don't know. Or I might just continue as usual. I've been planning a break for a while, but in 2023, there's just so many wrestling videos or so many collection videos I've been wanting to make that I just haven't been able to set time aside for myself. I want to get these videos out because, you know what, like I said, once they're posted, I'm no longer the creator. I become a fan, and I enjoy watching them as much as you guys do. So, but I'm gonna see something. I'm gonna try to come up with something. I'm not gonna take too long off if I do. You know, I have a pattern of going every 2 days, so I kind of don't want to disrupt that pattern. All right, so that should be it for now, guys. I do want to end by asking if there are any customizers out there who make Hasbro figures. If you guys do, you know, feel free to reach out to me. I am looking to acquire more Hasbro or Galoob, excuse me. I'm looking for Galoob customizers. I'm looking to add a bunch more Galoob figures to my collection so that I could start my favorite Galoob tournament. And I don't know if I'll do that towards the end of 2023 or if I'll wait to January or February to start it, but that is something I'm definitely interested in doing. So thank you for watching, everybody. As always, leave a comment if you'd like. Appreciate your feedback, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye, everybody.